Hi, I'm Laura Handke, and welcome to our show this evening. I'm here tonight with Nasreen Sheikh, who is an entrepreneur and a speaker originally from Nepal. I met Nasreen several months ago, maybe close to a year ago, when I first heard her speak at a Toastmasters event. And I was so moved and so impressed and so touched by what she had to say that I walked up to her afterwards and said, "How can I help you?" And so it is with great pleasure I introduce you this evening to Nasreen Sheikh.
Thank you so much, Laura, for bringing me here. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being here because I know your schedule has gotten really, really super busy since I saw you last.
That's right.
Wow, like I got this email when you got back and said, yeah, I'm back in the States now and this is what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 months.
That's true.
So where do we start? Tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, so for the last 6 months I have been back to Nepal, and I was doing working with women's group in Nepal. We have a learning center where we take a disadvantaged and marginalized women and teach them working skills to allow them become financially independent. These women, they are not only like working and making ethical fashion, but we also like so much involved in social work. They make reusable sanitary pads, and we make a hygienic kit with all the information with menstruation and reusable sanitary pad. And I went to villages, school to school, and some of the women's college, and teach them about positive impact of menstruation, because right now in Nepal menstruation is a huge taboo, and it makes a lot of women to not go to the school and they miss their school. So we are teaching them and bringing them a lot of positive impact in their life.
So basically what you're saying is that where you came from, a lot of women just don't leave the house when they're on their periods.
That's true.
Which a lot of women and people in other countries don't necessarily know about. So you've been distributing hygiene packets to help with this problem.
That's true. And then after just a month ago, we had a huge floods going on, and around 130 people got killed, and a lot of women and children, they didn't have the house to live in, they did not have a good food, they didn't have even clean water and some of the medical supplies. So through our nonprofit, we were able to help 200 families with food and with hygienic kits and with medicine and some of the immediate shelter.
So you helped 200 families during the terrible floods that happened there.
That's right. And then right after that, I got contacted by Foreign Trade Association, and I got the chance to speak in Brussels for anti-sweatshop, anti-child labor. And then right after that, I got the invitation to speak in London about modern slavery. And not there, like I would just keep inviting from like Spain and Brussels and France and London, and finally right now I'm here in America.
And I understand after doing all this speaking in Europe, you've been invited to do a TEDx talk coming up in Colorado early next year too, correct?
That's true, yeah. I just got nominated for TEDx, and I will be speaking in February 3rd, 2018.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to that YouTube video very, very much. But in the meantime, here you are, and you're practicing with us here, right?
Right.
And it's such a pleasure again to have you here. So, I know your story. I know where you came from. I know a little bit about what you've gone through and what led you to where you are today with local women's handicrafts and your nonprofit Lakwam, which we're going to talk more about later. But some of our viewers don't know your story.
That's right. So I come from a very small village on the border of India and Nepal, and my village is completely male-dominated society with no electricity, no cars, and no hospital.
Male-dominated, you said. Yeah.
Yes, and where like a lot of women give birth inside the house. Also in my village, birth and deaths are not recorded, so I don't know how old I am. And when I was very young, approximately 4 or 5 year old, I saw a lot of atrocities happening against women. I witnessed a lot of women committing suicide instead of continuing to live in their circumstances of their life. One of the hardest things for me was when my own 16-year-old sister was forced to arrange marriage. And I remember she wanted to do something different. She wanted to go to school. She wanted to change her life. And all her dream died the day she was forced into marriage. And that made me to wake up. Either I go and get forced an arranged marriage, or I escape this village and find myself.
And you managed to escape that village.
Yes, with the help of my cousin, I was able to escape that village and I came to city Kathmandu. And when I came to Kathmandu for the first time, I was so shocked and so overwhelmed that it took me 2 months to look out from the window, because all the women can actually do business, all the women can actually drive car, all the women can run the store. All my life, until 10 years, I have been taught if women are independent, they are shame to their society. But that was not right, so I was struggling with what is right and what is wrong.
What is right and what is wrong, and probably a lot of just stimulation from coming from such a small village to a larger city. So, but while you were there, with the time we have, you had an opportunity to teach. You were taught how to do some things, how to make some crafts, how to sew and do different things. And that leads us to really where your strong desire to help with child anti-labor laws and modern slavery and all of that came from. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so when I came to the city for the first time and I found myself in sweatshop and I was working for textile industry and I was forced to work for 12 to 15 hours a day. I remember we used to have like thousands of pieces order keep coming like every month, and I need to finish them on time, because if we don't finish on a time, our payment is going to be delayed, or we're not going to get money at all. So for that reason, to keep up with the work, I always have to like stay late into the night. And I remember it's not a story anymore, it's like my experience, and when I go back it brings me a lot of emotions. And I remember that I was so sleepy and I would have to put cold water in my eyes and make myself wake up, or sometime even I feel so sleepy I had to listen loud music to make myself awake and complete that order on time. I remember when I would go to sleep and I would sleep on the large pile of clothes I was making because there was no bed. I would always find thread in my food because everywhere is clothes and clothes and clothes, and I would always ask like, who are going to wear these clothes, where it's going to be shipped? And all these questions made me feel such an aversion against clothing industry and the product itself, that the shirt that I was making must have been filled with bad energy. What I feel when I came in America in 2015 and to Europe when I went there and I see and I walked into so many department store, and that is when I realized where my old clothes that I was making is getting sold. And I saw a lot of people being disconnected from the source of manufacturing.
The clothing.
Yeah.
And just to refresh the audience memory, because I know it, I don't know if they do, you were about 12 years old at this time.
Yes.
Working 12 to 15 hours per day.
Yes.
Trying to get thousands of pieces done.
Yes.
And often not sleeping anywhere else but there.
True, and still in today's world out there 168 million child labor is there, and only in Nepal 1.6 million child labor is still there today date, and that is why I want all the students, all the children to go to the school. They are not, they're born here in this world to bring creativity, to bring something positive instead of forced into a labor, you know, something cheap. Like people in America are not going to be feel happy if they buy cheap things. I feel like people in America needs a story, they needs connection, they need love, and as well as same people in Nepal needs connection and education and all those things. Yes, and love.
And that's big part of what you're doing with your organization. So let's talk about what LOCWAMS, and you can tell the people what that stands for, what your goals are for the coming year, and how you're helping these women in Nepal and India who don't have a voice for themselves. Not just by traveling the world and speaking out on behalf of them, but through what you are doing in your organization back home. So let's talk about your goals for the coming year.
Yes, LOCWAM is a non-profit, and LOCWAM stands for Local Organization Comprised of Women Offering Mentorship. We have built a learning center in 2013, and in that learning center we have a biogas, we have a solar power, we use 100-year-old loom.
So you're eco-friendly.
We are very much eco-friendly. We use a lot of like recycled materials. What happened in our center is we inform the disadvantaged those women to come our center, and they get training for 6 to 18 months and they also receive a stipend. So when they have like safe community of place where they can empower themselves through sustainable skills and have some economy, they feel some like very deep change in their life, and through that change they are not only able to help themselves, but immediately I see after 1 year they're changing their like family planning, they're thinking about their environment, they're thinking about their dream. Like so many times I interview my women and I ask them, what is your dream? And they would have no idea what does dream mean to them. And then after 8 months they are having a dream. How powerful is that? So I feel super connected to this work, and I feel like I'm born in this world to help people, and I want to keep doing it, and I want to empower 10,000 women by 2020. We want to like set up learning center, like 20 learning center in like 20 years. Right now we are going to build second learning center, which is going to be in the same area where flood got hit, and a lot of women and children, they don't have support, so we are going to build a learning center there and empower the women through skills, bring economy to their society and make them empowered through economy.
Well, I, for one, am just extremely grateful that you empowered yourself and that you had the support and help you needed to remove yourself from a situation that was unacceptable to you, and now that you're being the voice for all these women and other people across the world who don't have voices of their own. So I'm not the only one who wants to see what you're doing and wants to know what's happening next, and maybe people want to help. So how can people learn more? Tell us how people can find out about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, so we are all over media. When I was escaping my forced marriage, when I was only like 20 years old, because in my village, when you like when you are 23 years old, you are too old to get married. And in that time, we had a lot of social media like International Amnesty and Forbes. They write article about it, and people from all around the world, they visit our website lockwam.org, and that is where people like you can read women's story, you can read successful like the women that we have helped from nowhere to something or social entrepreneur. You can like people come there and they sponsor the women, they sponsor the children, they help us build learning center. We accept a lot of volunteers to come to our program and change people's life, because you know I feel giving is always getting. You feel like you're giving, but actually you're receiving a lot of things, and I want people to step out of their comfort zone and feel like how many people are waiting for you. I especially feel like America have a huge power that can actually change the world, because in Nepal we don't have electricity, we don't have water, but look, America do have those basic things, and those basic things can be shared in a positive way. So
Yep.
yes.
So the best way to keep track of you is lockwam.org.
Right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Any last words you want to share with your audience before we sign off?
Yes, I have one message to everybody, that when you buy things, know the story where it comes from. Ask question, who made your clothes? Who made the daily things that you use in your daily life? Have you ever tried to change the world that needs your support so much every time? Somebody have helped me. That is why I'm here today, and I feel like I have made so much through, and I need you now, and I can't do all alone, but through your support we can do a lot better, and we can save the world, and we can change so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all. Thanks for joining us again. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our program, everyone. My name is Bill Maher. I'm from the New Horizons Toastmaster Club. Good to see you again. I have with me a member of our club that I have met probably about 3 or so years ago. I am looking forward to talking with him tonight. He has such a vast experience in life that I think you'll enjoy. I know I have. Please help me welcome Lani Wigg. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you for this opportunity.
I'm so glad that you could make it.
It's a pleasure.
When we first met, you gave a couple of speeches about where you grew up and a little bit about your life, and I was fascinated first that you were raised in Hawaii, but also about some of the unique experiences that you had as a child being raised in Hawaii. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was raised in a family that was very privileged. My father was a surgeon, and we lived in a fancy neighborhood in Honolulu. And he and my mom decided that they wanted to have a Japanese maid, a Japanese American maid in the house to help raise the kids. So from the time I was probably 4 or 5 until I was about 16, we almost always had a Japanese American maid there. And they taught me, they were like mothers to me. They taught me a lot about Japanese culture.
Did you also learn some Japanese language at that time?
Very little. I remember one of the maids taught me to sing a popular Japanese song. This was probably when I was about 9, and it stuck. And it just went on and on and on until I finally completed a major in Japanese at the University of Hawaii.
Ah, interesting. Very interesting. What might somebody like myself, I've never been to Hawaii.
Oh, really?
Really?
Okay.
I've barely been out of the United States. If I were to visit...
Hawaii is in the United States.
It is in the United States. I'm sorry, out of the continental United
okay.
States. Thank you for that correction. I appreciate that. If I were to visit Hawaii for an extended period of time,
Okay.
6 weeks or so,
Okay.
what might I find most interesting about Hawaii?
I would say getting out of Waikiki and walking.
Oh,
I would
probably
recommend-
beautiful.
I think, what's that?
It's probably beautiful.
It's beautiful, but it's also, you're out of the bubble.
Oh, okay. Out of the tourist bubble.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And I would recommend that you ask if you can visit a high school.
Okay. I would like to do that as a high school teacher. I'm
Yeah.
very interested in doing
I think
that.
they'd be glad to have you for some reason, you know, like tell the kids about digital arts.
And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you went to high school in Hawaii.
Yes, definitely.
And then you had the opportunity to come to the mainland from Hawaii to go to college.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the college you attended and how that decision was made.
Okay. One day in my senior year, the college counselor called me into her office and asked me, well, do you know where you want to go to college? And this was just assumed that all the kids in my class were going to go to college, most likely on the mainland. And I said, I just don't know. You choose. It was all the same to me. And I just didn't know what I'd be getting into. And she could have said the University of Iowa and the Washington State University, but she chose the University of Oregon and the University of California at Berkeley to apply to. So I applied to both and got accepted by both.
And you got accepted by both.
Yeah.
You ended up choosing Berkeley
I chose Berkeley.
because...
Well, by that point in my life, I just was in love with the Spanish language.
Okay.
And I thought, what little I'd seen of California, that I was probably going to have a much better exposure to Spanish at the University of California than I would at the University of Oregon. That was one reason.
I would agree with that.
And it just seemed like a well-known school.
Yes, it was.
Okay, let's go.
College can be a very transformational time for a lot of people. And
It was for me.
It was for you. And I understand that you met a young man who is still your best friend.
I wouldn't say I'd say my wife is my best friend. But
Okay.
But he's a good friend.
Good catch. He's a very good friend.
Yeah.
You started some adventures
Yes.
after you met at Berkeley.
Right.
Tell us about the adventure that you had along the southern part of the United States and why you took that journey.
Okay. You have to picture what it was like to be in Berkeley in 1961.
1961, okay.
And there are sit-ins going on in the South. People are getting beaten up for trying to drink a milkshake.
Okay.
You know, this made pretty outrageous news programs in California.
Yes.
And finally, we talked about it and we said, you know what? The South seems like a place that we're going to learn something if we spend a summer there. So we decided we would apply to a university in Louisiana.
Okay.
I actually applied to a black university. They didn't accept me though because I checked off white
'Cause you checked-
on the application blank.
How about that?
But we both applied to Louisiana State, and we were accepted there.
Oh, okay. So you went from Berkeley to Louisiana State.
In a car.
In a-
Here's the
That's
car.
right.
An old Ford.
An old Ford. Wow. A hot summer car and a hot summer ride.
Yeah.
Yes.
And neither of us had much money at the time.
Well,
and
sure.
so we slept in the car.
Okay.
And
And you
we-
get to Louisiana.
Yes.
Did you experience what you thought you were going to experience, or what happened there a little bit?
Not being allowed to go to the black school, that was a surprise.
Okay.
Finding out that the police were really interested in the fact that we had California license plates, that started to seem quite normal by the time we left Louisiana. Because they would just pull us over.
Okay.
What y'all doing here? You know, we're coming to California. Why are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you say?
We finally got it pretty polished because we didn't want to be arrested.
Yes.
And we learned quickly that you don't pick up black hitchhikers if you're white.
Okay.
And probably vice versa. If you're a black driver, you don't pick up white hitchhikers.
Right.
The police did not like that at
Okay.
all.
After Louisiana,
Yeah.
where did you end up heading?
Well, every weekend that we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we would drive to another part of the South.
Okay.
So we drove all over Louisiana. We drove to Mississippi and Arkansas. Arkansas was where we found a place called Toadsuck
Toadsuck.
Ferry. And that's how the book is called The Toadsuck Summer.
Okay.
And then finally we left via North Carolina and Virginia. We went up to Canada and then drove back to Berkeley.
Wow. That is quite a trip.
Quite a trip.
And you came back to Berkeley
Came back to Berkeley.
for your second year at Berkeley.
Oh, no, by
And
this time I was ready for my third year.
you were ready for your third year.
But I decided I had enough of Berkeley. It was time to explore and learn more than I was learning at Berkeley.
So you decided to move on from Berkeley.
I did.
And where did you move on to?
Well, one place I moved on to for a semester was Oakland City College,
Okay.
because Oakland City College was ethnically diverse. And I got to know a lot of black people there. And then finally I just said, I am going to apply to an African-American university that accepts white people.
Okay.
And so I applied to Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Wow. And you got accepted.
I got accepted.
You were a student at Howard University.
Yes. And I arrived, just when I arrived to enroll, there was the March on Washington.
So you got to attend the March
I
on
got
Washington.
and I got to hear, I think it's like the Gettysburg Address of the 20th century. I got to hear Dr. King give his I Have a Dream speech.
Did you feel that things were changing at that time in America?
Not too much.
Not too much.
What we saw in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia, we thought was going to just stick around.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and so Dr. King, when he was saying he was going to go back to the South, I said, you go back to the South. I'm not going back to the South. I just didn't care for it.
Interesting, interesting. That experience, I'm sure a lot of people love hearing about. That personal experience is becoming more unusual to hear about. And you've had an opportunity to tell elementary school children,
I did, yes.
very much so. How do they receive that message from you?
On the whole, elementary school children in Oregon are extremely receptive to the idea of civil rights and blacks and whites and other races getting along better. They're keen on it. It directly relates to them.
Interesting.
If you ask them things like, what does Dr. King's dream mean to you? I remember one boy wrote, it means I can, he wrote a little thing, it means I can be a friend with Abel.
Aha. Interesting. That's very interesting. That's
They take
encouraging
it
to hear.
personally.
They take it personally. We've known each other for a few years through Toastmasters. Tell us a little bit about why Toastmasters works for you and why you keep going.
Well, for decades I was a teacher, and then I joined Toastmasters. And I found out in Toastmasters they have counters. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
I learned to stop saying and I learned to stop saying okay. I was addicted to those two things. And after a couple of years in Toastmasters, it got taken out of my repertoire.
I see.
I appreciate that.
I do too. I've had the similar experience in Toastmasters. Hard to believe, I know, but
Okay.
it's true. I've had my filler words, and I find myself saying them, and I can prevent myself from saying them, and it does really help with communication. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you could share these experiences with us, and the Toad Sucks Summer book is available.
It's available as an ebook. If people are ever interested, you can read the first 10th of it for free.
How about
you just
that?
go to Kindle, Toad Sucks Summer.
There you go.
Click, look
then-
inside.
And that'll get you hooked on the new travel. Thank you very much for being with us. We really appreciate the opportunity to hear Lani and his stories and how Toastmasters is still guiding his life. Search out Toastmasters. I'm from New Horizons Toastmasters of Tualatin. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
I joined Toastmasters to improve my speaking, listening, communication, and leadership skills.
Toastmasters gave me incredible confidence,
Confidence,
Great listening skills.
poise,
great leadership skills.
Leadership skills.
the ability to speak in public,
Strength. A captive audience.
quality feedback from the more experienced Toastmasters.
Toastmasters really helped me improve my listening skills.
Sales skills.
Opportunities to go to different groups and widen my whole horizon.
Toastmasters has given me a more focused me, and I'm a much better listener. Toastmasters is fulfilling.
It's a great place to fail your way to success.
Wonderful way to meet people.
Networking.
Strength. It's addictive.
It's a club of self-improvement.
It's an experience, it's a ride that you won't forget, and you'll enjoy it every step of the way.
Toastmasters helped me land a kick-butt job. I sang at one of my table topic speeches, and people liked it and applauded.
My business is doing great, and I'm very, very grateful to Toastmasters.
It's been a great experience for me.
Thank you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for giving me so much confidence.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for everything.